Hi there, it's Lynn, and I wanted to do a small video on ancestral contracts. Now, it's ancestral healing is a big subject actually, and it's not something that can be done just in one short journey or one short healing session, say for example. There are many layers to the ancestral contracts and the ancestral trauma and the ancestral energy running down from your paternal line and your maternal line. Now, the energy of your ancestral lineage as such can be very heavy. So it depends on what you have incarnated into, what ancestral line. And remember that you choose that ancestral line, which is a frequency match for what you are running on a soul level, or what you're trying to clear and what lessons you're trying to overcome is matched by the frequency and vibration of the family that you're born into. That doesn't mean that if you're born into a terrible ancestral line of sexual abuse and trauma and heavy dark contracts, that means that you are the same. Not that at all, but you are choosing that ancestral line because you know that you have the power to override that and heal and transmute it. And in that, you're providing a clearance for yourself and the frequency match that you were at past life wise. But also, you are then choosing a very heavy line to go and clear on behalf of service work for the divine. And I've personal experience of that, and have been born into a very heavy ancestral line, which meant that there was a lot of dark contracts running, especially on my father's side of the family. So that, is something that I've been working through and clearing over and over again. I made it was a big inroad actually last year and this year, where I got down to the nitty gritty of some contracts that have been formed by my father actually in other lifetimes, which was feeding in to that ancestral line and then actually ensnaring me up as well at the same time. And very often when a contract's running down a paternal side that is satanic, yeah, or evil, very much the eldest will inherit that contract. And I know that sounds terrible, right? But it's true. Because that blood contract, they're formed by blood contracts, which means by human sacrifice has been made to make that contract, right? And then that blood contract runs down, and because you're born of that bloodline, then the immediate first born normally takes that contract on. When the other parent dies, it passes on to the firstborn. Now, that might be making sense to some of you now, whether you had the death of a parent. I mean, it can happen down the mother's line, I do believe. I've not had much experience of that. That is much more, as I say, I've got it more on the masculine side. But you will inherit that contract. So if you're the firstborn or only child and you had a father die and you felt something very heavy pass on to you, I would explain to you that was probably a dark, invisible contract running that you have not realised. Now, some of us, I've heard a few people have the same experience, was when my father died and this contract was running, it passed to me. And I was the firstborn and only one. So it came to me. And I remember that when he died, I went into a very dark place. And you do grieve for your parents and all of that. And my mother already had died, and da da da. But what was very interesting was that I was, 10 years ago when he died, I was a spiritual teacher, ascension teacher, had my tools to be working on. And I had an experience in meditation where this figure, I was sat on, I used to sit in my own garden in my heart and meditate. And I was sat there under this tree, and this figure appeared behind the tree in black. And I could hear him, and he was saying to me, you can have anything you want. You can have a famous name. You can write tons of books. You can make millions of pounds. You can live anywhere in the world. You can have millions of followers. All of that stuff. Fame, fortune, if you just agree. Just out of nowhere, like, I was absolutely shocked. And I just said immediately, fuck off. And over my dead body am I agreeing to that? And they just disappeared, right? That really freaked me out at the time, because then I couldn't work out how that energy had come in. Of course, it was coming in through the back door of the ancestral contract that was running from my father, and also he'd gone into a bloodline that was the same. So of course, that energy was then running through my DNA, and it's my job to clear those ancestral contracts through my bloodline. So that's just one example, right? And who knows what our ancestors have agreed to. Sometimes they've made contracts under duress. They didn't want to, but they were forced to do it. Whatever it is that happened, we have the power to override, heal, clear and transmute that. But we must follow like the divine and universal laws in regards to that. And that is about claiming divine soul sovereignty. And that then starts a process of shutting the back doors into your energy matrix and soul interference. This is very much a reason why lots of people get abduction contracts running. They haven't made the contract to be abducted. It's come from a bloodline, and the bloodline made the agreement for whatever reason, right? Whatever reason. And then you have then inherited that contract, and you are being abducted. That was another thing that my father was running. And I then was being abducted as well as a child, and never realised, yeah? And that came more to the fore when I became conscious and woke up and suddenly had an experience in about 2011, where 2011, 2012, maybe 2011, I can't remember now, where I was abducted, and it wasn't a pleasant experience. And I remember trying to fight it at the time, and then I had a series of abductions after that, always on a full moon, actually. And then I actually got a handle on that as I started to dissect it and work out and ask for guidance. How do I clear this? How do I get rid of it? And I think it was actually only finished in something like 2018. I got out of it in 2018. And that it became less and less as I was sort of cutting the cords away. At the time, I didn't realise quite what to do that would have cleared it more quickly. Now I do, because I've learnt it by living through it. And now, we have statements of divine law, which actually then break the contract officially, right, on behalf of not only yourself, but your bloodline. And then actually we start to then free the whole line, okay, which is very, very important to do that. Abductions normally come from the Zeta Greys, the military Greys. They're very prevalent at abductions, and don't give permission for that. And of course, they've hoodwinked us and our ancestors into giving permission. In one way or another, they're very crafty. That's how they get round divine law. And the more that we use divine law and we use it properly, then we have got the power to stop it, and stop it immediately. And that is just something to be aware of. These are all things running down the ancestral line. Sexual abuse contracts, sacrificial contracts. This is another one, especially for the women here. Another one is where an ancestor of yours could have made a contract in perpetuity, we call it. That means forever, for eternity. It never ends unless you know how to end it, right? And that contract is that they would sacrifice all of their future daughters. They would sacrifice all of their future daughters in perpetuity to be assaulted, raped, abused, whatever the Dark Lords wanted. Lucian or light or divine feminine energy and power. Now that happened to me. That's another one. And that's how really, I think I was, that's how they could access me as I incarnated in this lifetime here. And that's how my abuse started, because that contract was already running. And that contract had been agreed and it was running in perpetuity. So as soon as I was born into that bloodline as a female, boom, I was off. That was it. I was in that contract, whether I liked it or not. He had made the contract. Therefore, the contract was running. Now, that was a contract that was very, very big. And actually, it was sort of linked to a historical timeline event. Won't go into details, and that actually then affected thousands of women along that timeline, including myself and including my mother, actually. And as I say, with the tools of divine law I've got, and the quantum bridge that we have because I work with the Great White Brotherhood and the Councils of Light and the Lemurian High Council as well. I work with many councils actually. We had the absolute tools and space to actually shut the whole timeline down all at once, which would have been very, very powerful. And it was for me. That was sort of like a catalyst for me completely leaving one timeline and moving up into where I should be. And actually, for doing that, I felt tons better immediately. And actually, it gave me then the impetus to go and make a big life change that I had to make, which was almost like dragging me down because of that timeline. Very interesting. And so, as I say, ancestral work is so, so important. All of the work is important, all of the layers. And that's why I've got the protocols to assist you to clear all of this in a very powerful way. And evidently, I'm supposed to show you what to do to get out of this stuff, to get out of these contracts. Also, I do have a very powerful journey that I do, and I take people on, where we go and work on all of your ancestral line to absolutely 0 point. And we call them all in, and we actually do some very big work where we break contracts for them on behalf of them. You say it, and you're breaking down contracts for mind control, for abuse. You're doing it for your ancestral line. You're clearing your ancestral line because you know how important it is that those souls do get a chance as well to leave lower base timelines. And in the work that I did, when I did that ancestral work, I then freed my mother up off an old timeline. She was stuck on it. She couldn't have come onto New Earth. So in doing that, that felt very wonderful. I got huge confirmation as well that my mother had moved and she was on a higher trajectory because of that, because I had broken the contract for her as well, which was very, very a big thing. So I felt very honoured and happy to have done that for her, and to have broken it for aunties and nieces and cousins that were linked on that as well. So it felt very wonderful to be able to do that work for them. So if you're struggling, right, and you're feeling weighed down by the energy of your family cycles and karmic cycles, then ancestral work is required, and on a big scale. Um, I see lots of ancestral work. I'm not knocking anybody else's work. We've all got different people to work with, of course, but some of it is very superficial. But we need to go deeper than that. We need to go deep, deep, deep to actually dig and pull out what's running. And I will be in my in my healing system, which is my quantum bridge timeline healing. That's exactly what we do. We offer you the opportunity to go and clear your ancestral line during training, and we actually teach you how to work on healing timelines for yourself, so that you can go on and do lots of work by yourself when you come across other things that come along. Um, it's always layers. Nothing's ever cleared in one shot. There's always another layer, because we are so ensnared, right, by all these different cords and different contracts that we've tied up in. And remember, on this ascension pathway, we're clearing up all lifetimes at once. We're mopping up, aren't we? We're cleaning up before we move to a new space. Like we're moving house. So we're moving house and going to New Earth. So the old house has to be cleaned and made sure that we've not left anything behind. We have to make sure that every bit of our stuff from that house has to come out, right? So that we're not linked to it in the future, or that old house energy is pulling us back. So we have to clean house and make sure we take everything out before we move to the new house on New Earth. So that's just an analogy I'm using. So that is maybe why some of you are struggling, and you can't work out why. Why is it so difficult? Why am I still having trouble? And I've done this and I've done that. Just think about your ancestral lines, right? What cycles are running? Are you aware that there's sexual abuse running in your timeline? I'm sure everybody's timeline has got sexual abuse running at some point. Is there a more heavy energy running? Have you got sort of like family inherited diseases and conditions? Because this is linked to the energy of oppression, trauma. Just imagine the wars that our ancestors have been through, and they carry that trauma through their DNA, and then that DNA is passed down to us, and we're carrying that. So it's very heavy. I've always described it as a heavy metal coat that is over us, like entrapping us, and we have to clear that coat, that ancestral coat, right off us and dismantle it, so that we can rise up into our true vibration and light. So I hope that's helped. It's not too complex. I didn't want to go into too, but to just prompt you to ask the question. Go and ask for confirmation. Go and ask your I Am Presence and highest guides, am I running heavy ancestral contracts? Yeah? If you get confirmation, you need to do something about it. It's your job to work on those and clear them. And when you work and clear on them, then you're clearing them for future generations as well. Because if you've children, they will be running that with you. So as soon as you break and finish that and clear it, then you're clearing that energy for them at the same time, which is a fantastic thing. So I don't want any of my ancestral contracts running down to my children And my grandchildren, I will not allow that. I will not allow them to inherit my family ancestral contracts. No chance. Yeah, they have to be cleared and completely transmuted. Um, so there is just a thing. Now I offer personal sessions for ancestral healing as well. But I'm always of a great, example and believer of to do it yourself. I want to teach you how to do it, right? It's not about me doing it, is it? It's you doing it, right? That's empowerment. That's sovereignty. So it's about showing you how I did it. And if that resonates with you, then you go away and you get it done. Or I hold space while you do it and I guide you during the process. But of course, I'm not doing it for you. I'm holding the space, and as a council member, which I am, I'm representing divine law. I'm holding space for divine law to be enacted and delivered, and that cannot be avoided in any dimension or parallel universe or anywhere. It cannot be escaped from. Yeah. So when we deliver universal law, we deliver universal law, and then it can't be, they can't escape from it. So I hope that's making sense. I hope this is confirmation for some of you that you are running a heavy ancestral contract right now, and this is holding you back. You may have done piles of work with everything else, but you're still having a lot of trouble. Just ask the question, is this ancestral healing? Can you see my tree of life? I've got my tree of life t-shirt on, and the 12-base tree of life, the Kathara Grid, is really important in this, because a lot of us we're hooked up into the false light matrix, the 10-base tree of life. You must leave that as well, and that does so much as well. It's amazing once we take ourselves out that false light matrix. We're talking about birth certificates and being hooked into the false tree of life, and our placenta, and how when we're born and the placenta is cut too early, and a heel prick test, and all of that is designed to disconnect us from the true 12-base tree of life. When we're born, we're coming through the Kathara Grid. We're coming through the 12-base tree of life, the true one. And then when we're born, they then make sure we're disconnected by cutting the placenta too early with a metal instrument, right? And if you look at placenta, it's got the tree of life in it. That is the transference of the 12-base tree of life into the baby. It's almost like it takes the energy from it, is coming in for a number of hours and a few days. Of course, it cuts it all of it off now. So then that transference doesn't take place, and it's interfered with from the beginning. And then they go and register us with the birth certificate, which then contracts us into the false matrix and the false tree of life. That's how they do it. So when you declare divine soul sovereignty properly in this realm, when you then go and reconnect to the crystalline tree of life, and that's something I facilitate as well, and others do as well, but I do, and I take you back into the Kathara Grid, then you can leave the false light matrix and the false tree of life. You come back into where you should be, and then it's much easier actually to clear all this stuff, much easier. So there you go. So I'm sending you love. Have a great week. I'm busy doing sessions and lots of things, back working and loving it. So I'm sending you all my love. And if you need any assistance, or you feel you're struggling with this and you get confirmation, then please don't hesitate to get in touch. I'm always here, and through my website, which is crystallineascension.com. Crystal Monday morning, crystalstarascension.com. All right, so sending you all my love. Bye. Make sure you subscribe and you like this video as well.